Are you thinking of purchasing a home? Is it time to refinance? What documentation is actually required, and what are some of the easiest ways to acquire it? Stick around to find out. Hey guys, Matt Snyder, Mortgage Insider here. Thanks so much for connecting today. This channel is designed to give you an inside look at everything mortgage and real estate related. This video is part of a series that I'm doing on the mortgage loan process. If you find the content useful, please like, share, and subscribe. And if there's something you'd like to see, please mention it in the comments below. So before we jump into what's needed, let's talk about why we need it. The mortgage industry is federally regulated. That is mainly due to the housing crisis in 2008 and a lot of predatory lending that was going on. So most of the things we need are to protect you and to protect the lender. The main things we need is to prove you are who you say you are and you make the income that you say you make, and that there's no tricky business going on, no money laundering, no terroristic activity. So all the items that we ask for are because we have to. If it was up to the mortgage industry, they would approve loans with much less documentation, but these documents are put in place for your safety and honestly for the safety of the economy in a whole. So it is a pretty long list of things that are needed. Don't let it overwhelm you. It is so much easier to get this documentation than it used to be, and we'll talk about some of those as we go through the list. Now keep in mind the documentation that you need is going to be based on the type of employment that you have, the type of loan that you're applying for, and your particular situation. Some people might require more documentation, some people could require less. The list that I'm going over here is the typical list that I send out to every new applicant. These are the items that I'm going to use as a mortgage loan originator to get your initial pre-approval in place. As you go through the process, you could be required to provide additional information. So the first thing on the list is a photo ID. Now this is going to be any government issued photo ID. The only big thing here is you want to make sure it's actually valid and that it has not expired and that it will not expire before you plan to close on the property. If you see that expiration date's getting close, go ahead and renew that. So last thing you want is to get close to closing and realize you've got to do some additional running around that you could have done well in advance. So the photo ID will prove who you are. Next step is really to prove that you have the income to support a mortgage payment. This is typically done for W-2 employees with pay stubs and W-2s. So your pay stubs, what they're looking for is the last 30 days. So if you're a weekly employee, this will be your last 4 pay stubs. If you're bi-weekly or semi-monthly, that'll be your last 2. And on the rare occasion that you're paid monthly, it might just be 1 pay stub. For W-2s, they look for your last 2 years W-2s, and this is simply to show that you have had consistent income over the last 2 years. Now, if you're not a W-2 employee, what they're going to look for is your 1099s, if you're a 1099 or contract employee, or your business tax returns to prove your income. Now, even if you are W-2, you are still required to do your last 2 years of tax returns, but that's going to be for anybody. And what they're looking for here is not your state return, only your federal income tax returns, but they want to see everything, all the pages, all the schedules. And what they're looking for here is what you report on your taxes is going to be the most close number they can get to what your actual income is. So just be careful. If you are a business owner and you write off a ton of expenses, that can really come back to bite you in the butt when you're shopping for a home. And they're going to go by your last 2 years of history. So just be aware of that. If you know you've got a purchase coming up and you do like to take advantage of every write-off that you can, that can definitely affect your available income for a mortgage. Other items we might need would be an award letter from Social Security if you're receiving disability, or if you're receiving retirement from Social Security, or an award letter from your pension if you are receiving retirement in that regard. And then they're also going to want to see 2 months of bank statements. They love to see your asset statements because they want to make sure you have the funds available to close on your mortgage. If you're putting a down payment down and your closing costs, they just want to see that you have funds in your account that'll cover any of those fees when you get to the closing table. What they're mainly looking for here is those are actually your funds, that you did not receive those funds as a gift that was undisclosed, that you're not laundering money and you haven't put large amounts of cash in that's undisclosed. So keep that in mind as well. They will review your asset accounts to see where your down payment and your closing costs are coming from. A couple other items, if you are doing a refinance, they'll want to see a current mortgage statement just so they can get the information off of that to compare it to the new loan, and then also your property tax bill if you're already in the property. Of course, there can be other items that are necessary depending on the type of mortgage that you're doing. If you have questions about any of the items on this list, please feel free to reach out to me. These items, like I've mentioned earlier, are much easier to get than they used to be. If you work for a decent sized company, most of those are going to have an online payroll system where you can pull your current pay stubs and even your W-2s from the past. You can print those off, or you can simply save them as a PDF and forward those over into your customer portal if you're applying for a mortgage, or you can just email them directly to your loan officer. If you work for a smaller company that doesn't have an online payroll system, typically the human resources director is going to be your go-to. Sometimes if you're a really small company, they don't have human resources, the owner is going to handle that, or their CPA, so it can get a little trickier sometimes. But if it's something you didn't keep a record of, there are ways that you can go back and access that documentation. To see a full list of what we require for our mortgage loan application, see the full list in the description below. Also there you'll find the links to my social media. I'd love to connect with you. Once again, if you found any value in this content, I hope that you'll share it. I'd love to help as many people as possible. Take care and stay safe, guys.